In this video, I am going to discuss something called the Magic Jack, which I think is a very good invention. And I hope someday Comcast or AT&T or any of those companies will finally embrace it and make it a nationwide product. There's only one little complication with the product though. When you are dealing with upload and download speeds, and as you already know from a previous video, upload and download speeds aren't necessarily the same. You may have a little trouble with the Magic Jack. And the reason for this is because if your upload and download speeds aren't the same, and your bandwidth is not the greatest in the world, well, then you may run into a situation where you're either talking on the phone or working on the internet. But in those kind of situations, you may not be able to do both things at once. Now, this does not apply to major metropolitan areas like Chicago, Peoria, Bloomington, Springfield, Champaign. Those major metropolises have that kind of bandwidth to support a feature like this. Unfortunately, rural areas, little small towns that you see all over the country, just do not have the kind of bandwidth necessary to support a product like Magic Jack. So, like I said, you may run into a situation where you're either working on the internet or you're actually calling somebody, but you're not able to do both at the same time because you have that bandwidth problem. Also, you may run into a situation, now I don't know whether you would or not, but because I don't particularly own a Magic Jack myself, I happen to live in a slightly smaller town, and I'm not sure that I particularly have the bandwidth at this point to run a Magic Jack effectively. Now, although I am seriously thinking about getting a Magic Jack, and at some point in the future I actually will, and we'll see how it works then. But in the meantime, I just don't think that my high-speed internet has enough bandwidth to really handle a Magic Jack at this point. That may change in the next year or two, and if it does, I may get one and try it out for myself. But in the meantime, I think that the people in rural communities should hold off buying the Magic Jack until they find out how much bandwidth this thing's going to take, and more importantly, whether their community can actually support that kind of bandwidth. Remember, it's how much bandwidth you have and whether your upload and download speeds are comparable enough for this Magic Jack to work effectively. If they're not, the Magic Jack's not going to do you much good. But if they are, it's a really good investment. It's sort of like Vonage, and I can say of Vonage, you run into a similar situation. If you got enough bandwidth, Vonage is a great thing to have. If you don't, it's really not going to be that great of a use to you. Skype is another product that they advertise on a regular basis. Again, I say, it depends on your bandwidth. The more bandwidth you have, the better your upload and download speed you have, the better the product's going to work for you. If you don't have a whole lot of any of that, don't buy the product. If you do, go for it. So, like I said, you just kind of have to investigate what kind of bandwidth you have and your upload and download speed on your internet before you buy a product like this. It's just one of those things where some places it's going to work real well and some places it won't. So, it's up to you. Personally, I have nothing particularly against the Magic Jack. I just think that some people do not have the bandwidth necessary to support such a product. Check it out before you buy it. I'll talk about more things in a future video, so stay tuned.